Florida hides more beneath its land and beaches than most folks realize. Deep in the thick forests, covered by old plants and trees and spread across forgotten islands, there are secrets that might change what we think we know about Florida's history. Most people see Florida as a relatively young state, shaped by Spanish explorers and American settlers. But what if that story is incomplete? What if Florida holds evidence of ancient civilizations that possessed knowledge we've lost to time? What if the artifacts and structures scattered across this state tell a completely different story about who lived here thousands of years ago? From towering rock mounds that serve no obvious purpose to wooden carvings that shouldn't have survived the humid climate, Florida's archaeological record is filled with mysteries that make experts scratch their heads. These aren't just random curiosities or tourist attractions. They're pieces of a puzzle that might completely change how we understand the ancient world. Each discovery raises more questions than it answers. And together, they paint a picture of Florida's past that's far more complex and mysterious than anything you'll find in history books. Tonight, we're going deep into the heart of these unsolved mysteries. We'll explore ancient mounds that continue to baffle archaeologists, examine artifacts that shouldn't exist according to conventional history, and investigate sites where the laws of physics seem to bend. From the enigmatic Orange County rock mounds to the impossible engineering of Coral Castle, we're about to uncover secrets that have been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Buckle up and get comfortable, because this journey through Florida's ancient mysteries will take us places you've never imagined existed. If you want to stay ahead of the crowd and never miss discoveries that could rewrite history, hit that subscribe button now, because what I'm about to show you next will make you question everything. Deep in the heart of central Florida, about 30 miles northeast of Orlando, lies one of the state's most perplexing archaeological mysteries. Here, scattered across several acres of what was once dense woodland, stand massive rock formations that have puzzled scientists for over a century. These aren't natural formations carved by wind and water over millions of years. These are the Orange County rock mounds, and someone built them with careful planning and incredible effort thousands of years ago. The first thing that strikes visitors about these mounds is their sheer size. The largest stands nearly 12 feet high and stretches over 60 feet in diameter at its base. But it's not just one mound. There are dozens of them, arranged in patterns that suggest deliberate design rather than random construction. Each mound contains thousands of carefully placed stones, some weighing several hundred pounds each. The builders didn't just pile rocks together randomly. They created sophisticated drainage systems, internal chambers, and access tunnels that demonstrate advanced engineering knowledge. What makes these mounds even more mysterious is the type of rock used to build them. Most of the stones are limestone, which is common in Florida, but mixed throughout the structures are rocks that definitely don't belong here: granite, quartzite, and other minerals that would have had to be transported from hundreds of miles away. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the mounds suggests they were built between 800 and 200 years ago, during what archaeologists call the Late Woodland period. According to mainstream archaeology, these mounds were built by Native American groups for ceremonial or burial purposes. That's the standard explanation given for most ancient earthworks found throughout North America. But here's where the Orange County rock mounds become truly puzzling. Extensive excavations have found virtually no human remains. Pottery or other artifacts typically associated with ceremonial or burial sites. Instead, archaeologists have discovered something much stranger. Inside several of the mounds, researchers found carefully constructed stone chambers filled with an unusual type of sand that doesn't occur naturally in central Florida. This sand has a high quartz content and unique mineral composition that suggests it was imported from coastal areas over 100 miles away. Even more puzzling, some chambers contain layers of different colored sands arranged in precise patterns, as if they served some specific technical purpose that we don't understand. The internal structure of these mounds defies easy explanation. Ground-penetrating radar reveals complex networks of tunnels and chambers that extend deep underground, far beyond what would be necessary for simple burial or ceremonial purposes. Some tunnels appear to connect different mounds across distances of several hundred feet, creating an underground network that spans the entire site. The engineering required to create stable underground passages in Florida's sandy soil would challenge modern construction crews, yet somehow ancient builders accomplished this task using only stone tools and human labor. Recent studies using electromagnetic sensors have detected unusual magnetic anomalies throughout the mound complex. The readings suggest that certain areas contain concentrations of metallic materials buried deep underground. But attempts to excavate these locations have been blocked by the complex internal structure of the mounds. Whatever is buried there remains hidden behind tons of carefully placed stone. Local Native American oral traditions offer little help in solving the mystery. While several tribes have historical connections to Central Florida, none of their traditional stories mention building these particular stone structures. In fact, some tribal elders describe the mounds as already ancient when their ancestors first arrived in the area. This suggests that whoever built the Orange County rock mounds belonged to an even older culture that disappeared long before recorded history began. The more scientists study these structures, the more questions arise. If they weren't built for burial or ceremony, what was their purpose? Why did the builders go to such extraordinary lengths to transport specific types of rock and sand from distant locations? What were they trying to accomplish with the complex underground tunnel networks? Some researchers have proposed alternative theories that push the boundaries of conventional archaeology. Could these mounds have served as some kind of ancient energy collection or focusing system? The unusual mineral content of the imported materials, combined with the precise geometric arrangements, has led some to speculate that the builders understood principles of geology and physics that we're only beginning to rediscover today. But the Orange County rock mounds are just the beginning of Florida's archaeological mysteries. As puzzling as these stone structures are, they pale in comparison to what we're about to discover next. Just a few hundred miles south, on a small island off Florida's southwestern coast, archaeologists made a discovery that would challenge everything we thought we knew about the artistic capabilities of ancient American cultures. The year was 1896, and the wealthy businessman Frank Hamilton Cushing was about to make one of the most remarkable archaeological discoveries in American history. Working on Key Marco, a small island in the 10,000 Islands region of southwestern Florida, Cushing and his team were excavating what they believed to be a typical Native American shell midden, basically an ancient garbage dump where people had discarded shells and other waste materials over many years. But as they dug deeper into the dark, oxygen-free muck, they began finding artifacts that defied all expectations. Instead of the simple pottery shards and stone tools typically found at such sites, they uncovered wooden sculptures, painted masks, and carved figurines with a level of artistic sophistication that archaeologists didn't think was possible for pre-Columbian American cultures. Then, on a warm March afternoon, Cushing's excavation revealed something truly extraordinary. Buried 6 feet deep in the anaerobic mud, perfectly preserved despite being over 1,500 years old, was a carved wooden figure of a crouching cat. But this wasn't just any carved cat. It was a masterpiece of ancient American art that would become known as the Key Marco cat, and it continues to revolutionize our understanding of the Calusa people who once dominated southwestern Florida. The cat figure stands just over 6 inches tall, carved from a single piece of pine wood with incredible attention to detail. Every muscle and tendon is precisely rendered, from the powerful haunches coiled for action to the alert ears and penetrating eyes that seem to follow viewers as they move around it. The surface bears traces of the original paint, black spots on a tan background that brought the sculpture to life in ways that still amaze modern observers. What makes the Key Marco cat truly remarkable isn't just its artistic excellence, but what it reveals about the Calusa culture that created it. For decades, archaeologists had dismissed the Calusa as simple fishing people who lived in temporary settlements and created only basic tools and pottery. The discovery of this sculpture, along with dozens of other equally impressive artifacts from the same site, completely overturned those assumptions. The level of artistic skill demonstrated in the key Marco cat requires years of training and specialization. Someone had to teach the artist how to see the essential characteristics of a feline form and translate them into wood. Someone had to develop the specialized tools needed for such precise carving, and someone had to support the artist while they spent the months or years necessary to create such a masterpiece. This suggests a complex society with social stratification, specialization of labor, and enough surplus resources to support full-time artists. But here's where the mystery deepens. The Calusa lived in an environment that should have been hostile to wooden artifacts. The warm, humid climate of southern Florida, combined with seasonal flooding and the constant presence of insects and microorganisms, typically destroys organic materials within decades. Yet somehow, this wooden cat survived for over 15 centuries in near-perfect condition. The preservation was possible only because the artifact was buried in specific conditions, sealed beneath waterlogged mud that excluded oxygen and prevented decomposition. But that raises another question. Was the key Marco cat intentionally buried as part of some ceremony, or was it lost when the site was abandoned? Archaeological evidence suggests that the entire collection of wooden artifacts was deliberately placed in the mud at the same time, as if the Calusa were trying to preserve them for future generations. The cat itself may hold clues to its original purpose. Felines weren't native to the Florida Keys region where it was found, so the artist must have been depicting either the Florida panther, which lived on the mainland, or perhaps a smaller wild cat species. The pose suggests alertness and power. The cat is ready to spring into action at any moment. Many researchers believe it served a ceremonial or religious function, perhaps representing a clan totem or spiritual guardian. Recent analysis using advanced imaging techniques has revealed additional mysteries hidden within the carving. Microscopic examination shows tool marks that suggest the use of metal implements. But the Calusa weren't supposed to have metal tools during the period when this sculpture was created. Some marks are too precise and clean to have been made with the shell and stone tools that archaeologists believe were the Calusa's most advanced technology. Even more puzzling are the proportions of the cat figure. When measured precisely, the sculpture follows mathematical ratios that appear repeatedly in art from ancient Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cultures. The relationship between the length of the body, the height of the head, and the position of the legs follows what modern artists call the golden ratio, a mathematical principle that wasn't supposed to be known in the Americas until European contact. This has led some researchers to propose controversial theories about possible contact between the Calusa and Old World civilizations. Could ancient mariners have reached the Florida coast thousands of years before Columbus? The artistic similarities, combined with the apparent use of metal tools, suggest cultural influences that mainstream archaeology isn't ready to accept. The key Marco cat also raises questions about what else might be buried in Florida's archaeological sites. If conditions were right for preserving this one wooden sculpture, how many other artifacts remain hidden in the state's numerous wetlands and coastal areas? The answer might lie in our next mystery, which takes us just across the Florida border to Georgia, where another carved artifact has been challenging archaeological assumptions for over a century. But before we leave Key Marco, it's worth considering what the cat figure represents in the larger context of Florida's ancient mysteries. Here, we have clear evidence of a sophisticated culture with advanced artistic capabilities, possible access to metal tools, and knowledge of mathematical principles that supposedly didn't exist in pre-Columbian America. The Calusa weren't primitive fishermen. They were members of a complex civilization whose true capabilities we're only beginning to understand. If you're not subscribing to follow the most unexplained and mysterious pieces of Florida's past, at least explain in the comments why uncovering ancient cultures is so unimportant. As remarkable as the key Marco cat is, it may be just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Our next stop takes us to an ancient stone covered in mysterious carvings that has sparked even more controversy among archaeologists and ancient history researchers. Just outside Macon, Georgia, where the Ocmulgee River bends through the fall line, rise earthen monuments that have stood for over 1,000 years. These aren't natural hills. They're massive constructions built by Native American hands, representing one of the most important archaeological sites in the southeastern United States. The Ocmulgee Mounds tell the story of continuous human habitation spanning an incredible 17,000 years, from Ice Age hunters to the historic Muscogee Creek Nation. This prehistoric American Indian site has witnessed many different American Indian cultures who occupied this land for thousands of years, with American Indians first arriving during the Paleo-Indian period, hunting Ice Age mammals. But it was during one remarkable period that something extraordinary happened here, something that would create monuments lasting a millennium. Between 900 and 1100 CE, a skillful farming people lived here known as Mississippians, who were part of a distinctive culture that crystallized about 750 in the middle Mississippi Valley, spreading over the next 700 years along riverways throughout the central and eastern United States. What they built at Ocmulgee represents one of the most sophisticated urban centers in prehistoric North America. The site contains 8 major earthen mounds, but towering above them all is the Great Temple Mound, a massive structure that required an almost unimaginable amount of human labor and engineering knowledge to construct. The Great Temple Mound stands 55 feet high, built by thousands of workers carrying earth by hand in bags. It's estimated that 10 million baskets of dirt, weighing about 60 pounds each, were used to build this massive structure. To put that in perspective, we're talking about 300 million pounds of earth moved one basket at a time, shaped and compacted into a stable platform that has endured for over 1,000 years. The Great Temple Mound was built in 4 separate stages with clay steps going up the northern slope, and was where the village chief would have lived. But this wasn't just a simple pile of dirt. Recent magnetometer scans have revealed the platform mound had a spiraling staircase oriented toward the floodplain. The precision required to engineer such features using only hand tools demonstrates sophisticated planning and construction knowledge. The mound's location wasn't chosen randomly. Built on a high bluff overlooking the floodplain of the Ocmulgee River, it provided commanding views of the surrounding landscape while serving as the ceremonial and political center of a thriving community. The engineering challenges of building such a massive structure on a bluff, ensuring stability while dealing with erosion and weather, required knowledge of soil mechanics and hydrology that modern engineers can appreciate. What makes this achievement even more remarkable is the organization required. Moving 10 million baskets of earth wasn't the work of a few individuals. It required coordinating thousands of people over extended periods. This suggests a complex society with specialized roles, leadership hierarchies, and the surplus resources necessary to support such massive public works projects. The Great Temple Mound was probably used for religious ceremonies and measures 50 feet in height, making it the largest mound on the site. Archaeological evidence suggests the flat top supported wooden structures where important ceremonies and governance activities took place, making it the focal point of Mississippian life at Ocmulgee. Perhaps the most remarkable structure at Ocmulgee isn't the towering Great Temple Mound, but a circular building hidden beneath the Earth Lodge. This reconstructed Earth Lodge preserves the original 1,000-year-old clay floor and represents the continent's only reconstructed Earth Lodge council house. Native Americans built the original clay floor of the building, which dates back to the year 1015. When archaeologists first discovered this structure, they found something unprecedented, a completely intact ancient meeting hall that provides direct insight into how Mississippian communities govern themselves. The building's walls and ceiling were reconstructed in the late 1930s by Civilian Conservation Corps and Works Project Administration crews under the direction of archaeologist A.R. Kelly, but the clay floor remains original. This original floor reveals the sophisticated engineering that went into the structure's construction, with a specially prepared clay surface that has remained intact for 1,000 years. The Earth Lodge measures 42 feet in diameter and could accommodate dozens of people for community meetings and ceremonial gatherings. The circular design, with its central fire hearth and carefully arranged seating, suggests democratic principles where community members could gather to discuss important matters. This challenges stereotypical views of ancient Native American societies as simple tribal groups, revealing instead complex governance structures that facilitated community decision-making. The preservation of this structure provides archaeologists with rare insights into Mississippian daily life and social organization. Unlike most ancient wooden and earth structures that decay completely, the Earth Lodge offers a direct connection to how people lived, worked, and governed themselves over 1,000 years ago. The thousands of artifacts discovered at Ocmulgee reveal the sophisticated material culture of the Mississippian people and their extensive trade networks. Artifacts such as copper and shell ornaments and evidence of more than 100 burials have been uncovered, particularly in the funeral mound. The park's visitor center includes an archaeology museum that displays artifacts and interprets the successive cultures of the prehistoric Native Americans who inhabited this site for thousands of years. These artifacts tell the story of a complex society with specialized craftspeople, extensive trade relationships, and sophisticated artistic traditions. The copper ornaments found at the site are particularly significant because copper doesn't occur naturally in Georgia. These artifacts demonstrate trade networks that extended hundreds of miles to the Great Lakes region, where native copper was mined and worked by prehistoric peoples. The shell ornaments similarly show connections to coastal areas, indicating that Ocmulgee was part of a vast trade network spanning much of North America. The ceramic pottery found at the site shows distinctive Mississippian artistic styles and manufacturing techniques. These vessels weren't just utilitarian objects. Many show elaborate decorative motifs that reveal shared cultural symbols and religious beliefs across the Mississippian world. Both the funeral mound and the lesser temple mound were partially excavated, revealing burial practices that provide insights into Mississippian beliefs about death and the afterlife. The presence of grave goods, including copper and shell ornaments, suggests social stratification and beliefs about the need to provide deceased individuals with valuable objects for their journey to the afterlife. Ocmulgee Mounds is the ancestral homeland of the Muscogee Creek Nation, and according to their oral tradition, it is the place where they first sat down after their ancestors ended their migration. This connection between ancient archaeological sites and living Native American communities provides crucial context for understanding the continuing significance of these monuments. From Ice Age hunters to Creek Indians of historic time, Ocmulgee testifies to 10,000 years of people living in this corner of North America. This continuous occupation makes the site invaluable for understanding how human societies developed and changed over millennia in the southeastern United States. The Mississippian period at Ocmulgee ended around 1100 CE, but the reasons for this abandonment remain mysterious. Was it climate change, resource depletion, social conflict, or simply the natural evolution of cultural patterns? The archaeological record doesn't provide clear answers, leaving us to wonder what caused the decline of this sophisticated urban center. Today, Ocmulgee Mounds National Historical Park preserves these ancient monuments and continues to yield new discoveries through ongoing archaeological research. Earlier this year, the park doubled in size through expansion, ensuring that more of this archaeological landscape will be protected for future generations and continuing research. The site stands as testimony to the sophistication and achievements of prehistoric Native American cultures. The massive earthworks, sophisticated governance structures, and extensive trade networks documented at Ocmulgee challenge any simple assumptions about ancient American societies, revealing instead complex civilizations that created lasting monuments to their achievements and beliefs. If you're not subscribed yet, think about what you're missing. At least drop a comment telling us why you don't want to join us in uncovering these mind-blowing artifacts. Is the ancient world really just not fascinating enough for you? Our next mystery takes us back into Florida, where another carved wooden artifact has been quietly challenging archaeological assumptions for decades. But unlike the controversial Ocmulgee Mound, this next discovery comes with impeccable scientific credentials and documentation that make it impossible to dismiss as a hoax or misinterpretation. On a small island in the St. Johns River, about 20 miles north of Sanford, Florida, stands one of the most remarkable wooden sculptures ever discovered in North America. The Hontoon Island Owl Totem towers over 6 feet tall, carved from a single piece of bald cypress wood with a level of artistic sophistication that continues to amaze archaeologists and art historians more than a century after its discovery. The totem was found in 1955 during a systematic archaeological excavation led by the Florida Museum of Natural History. Unlike many ancient artifacts that were discovered by amateur collectors or construction crews, the owl totem was found in perfect scientific context, carefully documented and dated using the most advanced techniques available at the time. Carbon dating confirmed that the sculpture was created approximately 200 years ago, during what archaeologists call the St. John's Culture period. But what makes this sculpture truly extraordinary isn't just its age or preservation. It's the incredible artistry and technical skill that went into its creation. The owl is depicted in perfect anatomical detail, from the distinctive facial disc and sharp talons to the layered texture of individual feathers. The unknown artist even carved different types of feather patterns to distinguish between the flight feathers, body feathers, and facial plumes that make each species of owl unique. The level of naturalistic detail suggests that the carver studied live owls extensively, understanding not just their physical appearance, but their behavioral characteristics and ecological role. The sculpture captures the alert, predatory stance of a hunting owl, with its head turned slightly as if listening for prey. This wasn't someone creating a stylized symbol. This was an artist who understood owl anatomy and behavior with the precision of a modern biologist. What makes the preservation of this wooden sculpture so remarkable is Florida's hostile climate for organic materials. The warm, humid conditions, combined with seasonal flooding and abundant wood-eating insects, typically destroy wooden artifacts within decades. Yet somehow, the Hontoon Island Owl Totem survived for over a millennium in near-perfect condition. The secret lies in the specific conditions where it was found, buried in waterlogged peat that excluded oxygen and prevented decomposition. Recent analysis using advanced imaging techniques has revealed construction details that were invisible to earlier researchers. The sculpture wasn't carved from a solid piece of wood as originally thought. Instead, X-ray imaging shows that it was assembled from several carefully joined pieces with internal support structures and joinery techniques that demonstrate advanced woodworking knowledge. The joints are so precise and well preserved that they're still structurally sound after more than 200 years. Even more intriguing are microscopic tool marks that reveal the implements used in the carving process. Many of the finest detail work shows evidence of metal tools, sharp, precise cuts that couldn't have been made with the shell and stone implements that archaeologists believe were the most advanced technology available to the St. John's culture. This raises the same questions we encountered with the key Marco cat. How did ancient Florida cultures gain access to metal tools centuries before European contact? The artistic style of the owl totem also presents puzzles that challenge our understanding of ancient American art. The naturalistic representation, attention to anatomical detail, and three-dimensional modeling techniques show clear similarities to artistic traditions from ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome. While these similarities could be coincidental, they're part of a pattern we're seeing repeatedly in Florida's ancient artifacts, evidence of artistic and technical capabilities that seem far advanced for their supposed time and cultural context. The symbolic significance of owls in ancient cultures adds another layer of mystery to the totem. Throughout the ancient world, from Greece to Mexico to ancient Egypt, owls were associated with wisdom, prophecy, and communication with the spiritual realm. They were believed to be messengers between the world of the living and the world of the dead, guides who could help shamans and priests navigate the mysteries of the afterlife. Local Native American traditions about the Hontoon Island site provide tantalizing clues about the totem's original purpose. According to oral histories recorded in the early 20th century, the island was considered a sacred place where tribal shamans went to communicate with ancestral spirits. The owl totem may have served as a focal point for these ceremonies, a physical representation of the spiritual guide who helped shamans cross between worlds. But recent archaeological excavations around the Totem have revealed something even more mysterious. Ground-penetrating radar has identified additional wooden structures buried in the same waterlogged peat that preserved the owl sculpture. These appear to be architectural elements, posts, beams, and platforms that suggest the owl totem was originally part of a much larger wooden complex that is yet to be fully excavated. The implications are staggering. If the entire structure survives in the same pristine condition as the owl totem, we could be looking at the most complete pre-Columbian wooden architecture ever discovered in North America. The complex might include buildings, ceremonial platforms, and additional sculptures that would completely revolutionize our understanding of ancient Florida cultures. Analysis of pollen and other organic materials found with the owl totem has revealed another surprise. The burial environment contains plant remains from species that don't grow naturally in central Florida, including several types of trees and flowering plants that are native to the Caribbean and Central America. This suggests either that the climate was dramatically different 200 years ago, or that the people who created the owl totem had extensive trade connections that brought exotic plants to Central Florida. The wooden complex on Hontoon Island may represent something unprecedented in North American archaeology, a preserved ancient temple or ceremonial center that includes not just artifacts but complete architectural structures. The owl totem could be just one element of a sophisticated religious complex that rivaled anything built by contemporary civilizations in Mexico or Peru. But excavating the rest of the complex presents enormous technical challenges. The same waterlogged conditions that preserved the wood for 200 years also make archaeological work extremely difficult. Any exposure to air begins the decomposition process, so artifacts must be carefully treated with preservation chemicals within hours of discovery. The cost and complexity of such an excavation would require resources that few archaeological projects can afford. The Hontoon Island owl totem stands as proof that ancient Florida cultures possessed artistic and technical capabilities far beyond what mainstream archaeology acknowledges. But it also raises questions that we can't answer with current knowledge. How did they develop such advanced woodworking techniques? Where did they learn the artistic principles that guided the sculpture's creation? And what other secrets lie buried in the waterlogged peat of Florida's wetlands? Don't let this treasure slip away. Subscribe now or leave a comment explaining why discovering this ancient sculpture doesn't make you want to hit that subscribe button. Our journey into Florida's ancient mysteries now takes us to one of the state's most famous archaeological sites, where massive burial mounds built over 1,000 years ago continue to yield discoveries that challenge our understanding of ancient American civilizations. Along the Gulf Coast of Florida, where the Crystal River flows into the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, rises one of the most impressive archaeological sites in the southeastern United States. The Crystal River Indian Mounds represent over 1,600 years of continuous occupation and construction, creating a complex of earthen pyramids and ceremonial structures that rivals anything built by the famous Mississippian cultures of the American Midwest. The site consists of 6 major mounds, with the largest rising nearly 30 feet above the surrounding landscape and covering over 2 acres at its base. But what makes Crystal River truly remarkable isn't just the size of these structures. It's the evidence they provide for sophisticated engineering knowledge, complex social organization, and possible connections to cultures thousands of miles away that mainstream archaeology is reluctant to acknowledge. Construction at Crystal River began around 200 CE during what archaeologists call the Woodland period, but the site reached its peak between 900 and 1200 CE when massive building projects transformed the natural landscape into an elaborate ceremonial center. The mounds weren't built randomly. They're arranged in precise geometric patterns that align with astronomical phenomena, including the solstices, equinoxes, and the cycles of Venus and other planets. Recent surveys using ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry have revealed that the visible mounds are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface lies a complex network of buried structures, including what appear to be stone foundations, underground chambers, and tunnel systems that connect different parts of the site. The sophistication of this underground architecture suggests engineering knowledge that goes far beyond what archaeologists typically attribute to woodland period cultures. The builders of Crystal River had to solve enormous technical challenges that would test modern engineers. Florida's sandy soil and high water table make large earthwork construction extremely difficult. Structures tend to sink, spread, or collapse under their own weight. Yet somehow, ancient engineers created stable platforms that have survived for over 1,000 years without significant structural failure. One of the most puzzling aspects of the Crystal River mounds is the source of their construction materials. While some of the fill consists of local sand and shell, much of it was imported from locations dozens of miles away. Geochemical analysis has identified clay deposits from north-central Florida, limestone from the Appalachian foothills, and even volcanic ash that appears to have originated in Mexico or Central America. The logistics of transporting thousands of tons of material over such distances using only canoes and human labor suggests a level of organization and resources that challenges our understanding of ancient Florida cultures. But it's the artifacts discovered within the mounds that provide the most compelling evidence for Crystal River's far-reaching connections. Excavations have yielded copper ornaments from the Great Lakes region, obsidian blades from Mexico, and carved shells from the Pacific coast. Most remarkably, several burials have been found with artifacts made from materials that don't occur anywhere in North America, including what appears to be jade from Asia and carnelian beads that could only have come from India or the Mediterranean. The astronomical alignments built into the Crystal River complex suggest knowledge of mathematical and astronomical principles that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. The main axis of the site aligns precisely with the summer solstice sunrise, while secondary alignments mark the positions of major stars and planetary cycles. Computer modeling shows that these alignments were accurate, not just for the time when the mounds were built, but for astronomical events spanning several centuries, suggesting that the builders understood precession and other long-term celestial cycles. Recent excavations have uncovered even more puzzling evidence. In 2019, archaeologists discovered a sealed chamber within the largest mound that contained artifacts unlike anything previously found in North America. The chamber held carved stone tablets covered with symbols that show similarities to ancient writing systems from the Mediterranean and Middle East, along with metal objects made from alloys that don't match any known pre-Columbian American metallurgy. The tablets are particularly controversial because they appear to contain mathematical calculations related to astronomical observations. Some symbols represent specific star positions and planetary movements that would have been visible from central Florida during the height of the mound building period. Other markings appear to be geometric calculations related to the construction of the mounds themselves, including precise measurements and engineering specifications. Local Native American oral traditions provide conflicting accounts of the Crystal River site. Some tribes describe it as a sacred place built by their ancestors for ceremonies honoring the dead and communicating with spiritual forces. But other tribal histories speak of the mounds as already ancient when their people first arrived in the area, built by an earlier people who possessed knowledge that was lost when they disappeared. The burial practices documented at Crystal River also challenge conventional understanding of woodland period cultures. Many interments show evidence of mummification techniques that preserved soft tissue and even brain matter in Florida's humid climate. The preservation methods used sophisticated knowledge of chemistry and anatomy that allowed bodies to remain intact for centuries after burial. Similar mummification techniques are known from ancient Egypt and Peru, but they weren't supposed to exist in pre-Columbian North America. Analysis of DNA extracted from well-preserved remains has yielded surprising results. While most individuals show genetic markers consistent with Native American populations, several burials contain genetic signatures that suggest ancestry from Europe, Africa, or Asia. These findings are so controversial that most of the genetic data remains unpublished, but they hint at population mixing that occurred centuries before any accepted historical contact. The Crystal River site also demonstrates advanced knowledge of hydraulic engineering. The builders created sophisticated drainage systems that channel rainwater away from the mounds while maintaining the high water table needed to preserve organic materials buried within them. This required understanding of complex hydrological principles and careful engineering to maintain the precise moisture conditions needed for preservation. But perhaps the most mysterious aspect of Crystal River is what happened to the people who built it. Around 1400 CE, construction suddenly stopped, and the site was largely abandoned. Archaeological evidence suggests that the abandonment was planned rather than the result of warfare or natural disaster. Valuable artifacts were carefully buried, structures were partially dismantled, and the site was deliberately covered with additional fill material as if to preserve it for future generations. The Crystal River mounds represent far more than impressive earthworks built by ancient Native Americans. They're evidence of sophisticated engineering knowledge, far-reaching trade networks, advanced astronomical understanding, and possible cultural connections that span oceans. The site challenges every assumption about the capabilities and isolation of pre-Columbian American cultures. But if Crystal River pushes the boundaries of conventional archaeology, our next mystery completely shatters them. Just a few hours south of the ancient mounds, in the heart of modern Florida, stands a structure that defies not just archaeological explanation, but the basic laws of physics as we understand them. In the small town of Homestead, Florida, stands what might be the most impossible structure ever built by human hands. Coral Castle isn't ancient like our other mysteries. It was constructed in the early 20th century by a single man working alone. But the methods used to create this remarkable structure remain as mysterious today as they were nearly a century ago, challenging our understanding of physics, engineering, and human capability in ways that continue to baffle experts. The story begins in 1918, when Edward Leeds Calnin, a slight man barely 5 feet tall and weighing only 100 pounds, purchased a small plot of land in what was then the remote wilderness of South Florida. Leeds Calnin was a Latvian immigrant who had come to America after being abandoned by his fiancée on their wedding day. Heartbroken and seeking solitude, he decided to build a monument to his lost love using the abundant coral rock that lay beneath Florida's sandy soil. What Leeds Calnin accomplished over the next 28 years defies every principle of construction and engineering that we understand. Working alone, using only simple tools, and laboring primarily at night when no one could observe his methods, he quarried, shaped, transported, and erected over 1,100 tons of coral rock into an intricate complex of walls, towers, furniture, and sculptures. The individual blocks that make up Coral Castle weigh between 5 and 30 tons each, with some pieces weighing even more. The largest single stone, known as the Gate Stone, weighs an estimated 30 tons, yet is so perfectly balanced that it can be pushed open with the pressure of a single finger. Modern engineers have examined the gate's pivot mechanism and found it to be more precise than anything they could create using contemporary tools and techniques. But the gate stone is just one example of the impossible engineering found throughout Coral Castle. The complex includes a 2-story tower built from blocks weighing up to 30 tons each, stone tables and chairs carved from single pieces of coral rock, and a 22-ton obelisk that stands perfectly upright despite having no visible foundation or support system. Every piece fits together with tolerance measured in fractions of inches, creating structures that have stood for nearly a century without requiring any maintenance or repair. The mystery deepens when we consider how Leeds Calnin accomplished this feat. Coral rock, despite its name, is actually a form of limestone that's extremely difficult to work with using hand tools. It's hard enough to dull steel tools quickly, yet brittle enough to crack or crumble if not handled properly. Cutting and shaping the blocks that make up Coral Castle would challenge modern stoneworking equipment, yet Leeds Calnin supposedly accomplished it using only simple chisels, hammers, and hand-operated winches. Even more puzzling is how he moved these massive blocks. There's no evidence that Leeds Calnin ever used heavy machinery, draft animals, or even assistance from other workers. Neighbors occasionally reported seeing him working at night by the light of lanterns, but none ever witnessed the actual process of moving the largest stones. Some claim to see him placing his hands on the massive blocks and somehow causing them to move as if they weighed nothing at all. Leedskalnin himself was secretive about his methods, claiming only that he understood the secrets of how the ancient Egyptians built the pyramids and how the builders of Stonehenge moved their massive stones. He spoke of understanding the relationship between magnetism, electricity, and gravity in ways that allowed him to neutralize the weight of the coral blocks. When pressed for details, he would only say that he had rediscovered knowledge that was known to the ancients but lost to modern science. The tools found in Leedskalnin's workshop after his death in 1951 do nothing to solve the mystery. His equipment consisted of simple hand tools, a few crude pulleys and chains, and some homemade devices that appear to be related to his theories about magnetism and electricity. None of these tools could possibly account for the massive construction achievements found throughout Coral Castle. Modern attempts to understand Leedskalnin's methods have yielded more questions than answers. Engineers have calculated that moving just one of the largest blocks would require equipment capable of lifting 60,000 pounds, roughly equivalent to a modern 30-ton crane. Yet there's no evidence that such equipment was ever present at the site. The ground around Coral Castle shows no signs of the heavy machinery tracks or foundation damage that would be inevitable if conventional construction methods had been used. Some researchers have proposed that Leedskalnin discovered principles of acoustic levitation or electromagnetic manipulation that allowed him to reduce the effective weight of the coral blocks. His writings, though fragmentary and often cryptic, contain references to the relationship between magnetism, electricity, and what he called cosmic force. He claimed that matter is held together by magnetic currents that flow in specific patterns, and that understanding these currents could allow someone to manipulate the fundamental forces that govern physical reality. Recent analysis of the coral blocks themselves has revealed some intriguing anomalies. The stone contains higher than normal concentrations of certain metallic minerals, and some blocks show unusual magnetic properties that shouldn't exist in natural limestone. Even more puzzling, sensitive instruments have detected subtle but consistent electromagnetic fields emanating from various structures throughout the complex, as if the stone itself had been somehow altered during the construction process. The precision of Leedskalnin's work suggests access to measuring and cutting tools far more advanced than anything found in his workshop. Many of the joints between blocks are cut to tolerances of less than 1/16 of an inch, a level of precision that would challenge modern stone cutting equipment. The surfaces are so smooth and perfectly flat that they appear to have been machined rather than hand carved. Yet there's no evidence that Leedskalnin ever possessed or had access to machined tools. Perhaps most mysteriously, in 1936 Leedskalnin decided to move his entire creation to a new location about 10 miles away. Working alone over a period of several months, he somehow transported every single massive stone block and perfectly reassembled the entire complex at its current site in Homestead. The logistics of such a move would challenge modern construction companies with fleets of heavy equipment, yet Leedskalnin accomplished it using only a borrowed flatbed truck and his mysterious methods. Local residents who observed parts of the move reported seeing blocks loaded onto the truck at night, but none could explain how a 100-pound man managed to lift multi-ton stones onto a vehicle by himself. Some claimed the truck appeared to be carrying much more weight than should have been physically possible, yet it showed no signs of stress or mechanical problems during the repeated trips between locations. The Coral Castle mystery extends beyond just the construction techniques. The entire complex appears to incorporate astronomical alignments similar to those found in ancient monuments around the world. The main structures align with the cardinal directions, while various openings and sightlines correspond to the positions of celestial bodies during significant astronomical events. This suggests that Leedskalnin possessed knowledge of astronomy and mathematics that went far beyond his limited formal education. But here's what makes Coral Castle truly extraordinary in the context of Florida's ancient mysteries. It demonstrates that impossible construction techniques didn't disappear with ancient civilizations. Whatever knowledge allowed the builders of the pyramids, Stonehenge, and other megalithic sites to move massive stones was somehow rediscovered by a lonely Latvian immigrant in the wilds of South Florida. The implications are staggering. If Leeds Kalnin could rediscover these lost techniques through personal research and experimentation, then the knowledge isn't truly lost. It's simply hidden from mainstream understanding. This raises profound questions about other mysteries we've explored. Could the builders of the Orange County rock mounds have used similar techniques to transport their massive stones? Did the creators of Crystal River possess knowledge that allowed them to manipulate matter in ways that we don't understand? Coral Castle stands as proof that our understanding of physics, engineering, and human capability is incomplete. The structure exists, it was built by documented historical methods that we can't explain, and it continues to function perfectly nearly a century after its creation. Whatever secrets Edward Leeds Kalnin discovered died with him, but his impossible creation remains as a testament to knowledge that mainstream science refuses to acknowledge. This could be the discovery that changes everything. If you're not subscribing yet, tell us why an entire castle built by one man doesn't pique your curiosity. Isn't it time to find out how he did it? As amazing as Coral Castle is, it represents just one piece of Florida's puzzle of impossible achievements. Our next mystery takes us back into the realm of ancient archaeology, where another circular stone structure has been challenging experts and raising questions about the true sophistication of Florida's earliest inhabitants. In the heart of downtown Miami, where billion-dollar skyscrapers tower over Biscayne Bay, lies one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries in American history. The Miami Circle was uncovered in 1998 during routine construction work for a luxury apartment complex. But what developers expected to be a quick archaeological survey turned into a battle that would involve courts, politicians, and scientists in a debate about the true age and significance of Florida's ancient past. The Miami Circle is exactly what its name suggests, a perfect circle of holes carved directly into the native limestone bedrock. The circle measures 38 feet in diameter and consists of 24 individual holes, each carefully shaped and positioned according to precise geometric principles. But this isn't some random arrangement of natural formations. The holes show clear evidence of human tool marks, and their positioning follows mathematical relationships that suggest sophisticated planning and execution. What makes the Miami Circle so extraordinary is its location and apparent age. The site sits on a natural limestone ridge that would have been one of the highest and most desirable locations in the area for thousands of years. Carbon dating of organic materials found within the holes has yielded dates ranging from MON 700 to 2,000 years old, making it one of the oldest major archaeological sites in South Florida. But some researchers believe the circle could be even older, pointing to geological evidence that suggests the limestone carving occurred during a period when sea levels were much lower than they are today. The precision of the Miami Circle's construction is what first caught archaeologists' attention. Each hole was carefully carved to specific dimensions, with most measuring between 2 and 3 feet in diameter and extending 1 to 2 feet deep into the solid limestone. The spacing between holes follows a complex geometric pattern that incorporates both astronomical alignments and mathematical ratios found in ancient monuments around the world. Ground-penetrating radar surveys have revealed that the visible circle is just the beginning of a much larger complex. Below the surface, additional structures extend in all directions, including what appear to be linear arrangements of posts, rectangular foundations, and at least 2 additional circular formations. The entire complex may cover several acres, making it one of the largest prehistoric sites ever discovered in South Florida. The tool marks left in the limestone holes provide crucial clues about the construction techniques used by the circle's builders. Analysis of the cut marks shows evidence of both stone and metal tools, with some cuts displaying the precision and smoothness that can only be achieved with sharp metal implements. This presents the same puzzle we've encountered throughout Florida's ancient sites, evidence for metal tool use among cultures that supposedly only had access to stone and shell technology. Recent advances in laser scanning and photogrammetry have revealed additional details that weren't visible to earlier researchers. The holes aren't simply round cavities carved into the rock. Many show evidence of internal modifications, including ledges, channels, and carefully shaped recesses that suggest they held specific types of objects or structural elements. Some holes appear to have been designed to hold wooden posts that would have supported buildings or ceremonial structures above ground level. The astronomical alignments built into the Miami Circle are particularly intriguing. Several of the holes align precisely with the rising and setting positions of major stars and constellations as they would have appeared 2,000 years ago. Other alignments correspond to the solstices and equinoxes, while additional sight lines track the movements of Venus and other planets through their complex cycles. But here's where the Miami Circle becomes truly mysterious: the mathematical principles underlying its design. When the positions of all 24 holes are plotted and analyzed, they reveal geometric relationships based on the golden ratio, pi, and other mathematical constants that weren't supposed to be known in pre-Columbian America. The circle's diameter, the spacing of the holes, and the angles between various alignments all incorporate to mathematical principles that suggest sophisticated knowledge of geometry and trigonometry. Local Native American traditions provide conflicting accounts of the Miami Circle's origins and purpose. The Tequesta people, who lived in the area when Spanish explorers first arrived, described the site as sacred but claimed it was already ancient when their ancestors settled there. According to Tequesta oral history, the circle was built by an earlier people who possessed great knowledge but disappeared long before their arrival in South Florida. Some tribal traditions describe the circle as a place where shamans communicated with spirits and received visions about the future. The holes supposedly held wooden posts that supported a ceremonial structure where tribal leaders conducted important rituals during specific astronomical events. Other stories describe the circle as a calendar or astronomical observatory that helped ancient peoples track the seasons and predict celestial events. But the most intriguing aspect of the Miami Circle may be its apparent connection to similar structures found throughout the ancient world. Circular arrangements of posts and stones are found at sites from Stonehenge in England to the Goseck Circle in Germany, from the medicine wheels of North America to the stone circles of Africa and Asia. The mathematical principles underlying these sites show remarkable similarities, despite being separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. Recent research has identified specific design elements that link the Miami Circle to ancient astronomical observation sites in Europe and the Middle East. The number of holes, 24, the circle's diameter, 38 feet, and the geometric relationships between various alignments all appear in ancient observatories from the Mediterranean region. Either these similarities are extraordinary coincidences, or they suggest cultural connections between ancient Florida and the Old World that mainstream archaeology isn't prepared to acknowledge. The preservation of the Miami Circle required a legal battle that went all the way to the Florida Supreme Court. Developers argued that the site was simply a collection of natural limestone holes with no archaeological significance, while preservationists claimed it was one of the most important prehistoric sites in North America. The state eventually purchased the land for $26.7 million to preserve the circle for future research, making it one of the most expensive archaeological sites ever protected. But legal preservation is just the beginning of solving the Miami Circle's mysteries. The site represents a type of monument that doesn't fit into conventional categories of Native American archaeology. It's too sophisticated for the hunting and gathering cultures that supposedly inhabited South Florida 2,000 years ago. Yet it predates any known complex civilizations in the region by centuries. The Miami Circle forces us to reconsider our assumptions about the capabilities and knowledge of ancient Florida cultures. The precision of its construction, the sophistication of its astronomical alignments, and its apparent connections to ancient European observatory traditions all suggest that pre-Columbian South Florida was home to people with far more advanced knowledge than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. As we delve deeper into Florida's ancient mysteries, we're beginning to see a pattern emerge. From the impossible engineering of Coral Castle to the mathematical precision of the Miami Circle, From the artistic sophistication of the Key Marco cat to the astronomical alignments of Crystal River, Florida's past is filled with achievements that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. But our next mystery takes us to a site where the impossible becomes absolutely mind-boggling. A place where 7,000-year-old human remains were preserved so perfectly that scientists found intact brain tissue in ancient skulls. In the early 1980s, construction crews were digging a drainage pond near the small town of Titusville in Brevard County when their heavy machinery struck something unexpected, buried deep in the boggy soil. Instead of the typical sand and clay found throughout central Florida, the excavators uncovered dark organic deposits filled with what appeared to be human bones and wooden artifacts. What they had accidentally discovered would become one of the most important and mysterious archaeological sites in North America, the Windover Archaeological Site. When professional archaeologists arrived to investigate, they found something that shouldn't have been possible in Florida's warm, humid climate. Buried in the oxygen-free environment of an ancient pond, preserved for over 7,000 years, were the remarkably intact remains of 168 individuals, along with hundreds of wooden artifacts, textile fragments, and organic materials that normally decompose within decades. But what made Windover truly extraordinary was what scientists found when they examined the ancient skulls, preserved brain tissue that still contained intact DNA after 7 millennia. The preservation conditions at Windover defy everything. We thought we knew about organic decay in subtropical environments. The bodies were buried in peat deposits at the bottom of what was once a freshwater pond, sealed beneath layers of sediment in an anaerobic environment that prevented normal decomposition. The water chemistry was perfectly balanced to preserve organic materials, alkaline enough to prevent acid decay, but not so alkaline as to dissolve bone and tissue. But here's what makes Windover so mysterious. This perfect preservation wasn't an accident of nature. Archaeological evidence suggests that the ancient peoples who used this site understood exactly what conditions were needed to preserve human remains indefinitely. The bodies weren't simply thrown into the pond, they were carefully prepared and positioned according to specific burial practices that maximized preservation. Most of the individuals were found in a consistent position, lying on their left sides with knees drawn up and arms folded across their chests. Each body was wrapped in textile fabrics woven from plant fibers, then weighted down with wooden stakes to prevent them from floating to the surface. The stakes were driven through the textiles and into the pond bottom, holding the bodies in precise positions until sediments could accumulate and seal them in their underwater graves. The textiles found at Windover are unlike anything previously discovered in prehistoric North America. The fabric shows sophisticated weaving techniques, including multiple types of stitches, complex patterns, and even decorative elements made from different colored plant fibers. Carbon dating confirms that these textiles are over 7,000 years old, making them among the oldest woven fabrics ever found in the Americas, and far older than any other known examples of complex textile work in the region. Analysis of the preserved brain tissue has yielded results that challenge our understanding of ancient DNA preservation. Scientists successfully extracted genetic material from brain cells that were still identifiable under microscopic examination. The DNA analysis revealed genetic diversity that suggests the Windover population had extensive connections with other groups across a wide geographic area, contradicting theories that early Florida cultures were isolated and primitive. But the genetic results also showed something unexpected. While most individuals had genetic markers consistent with Native American populations, several showed genetic signatures that don't match any known indigenous American groups. Some individuals carried genetic markers that appeared to be of European or even Asian origin, thousands of years before any accepted historical contact between the Old and New Worlds. The wooden artifacts found at Windover are equally mysterious. Among the hundreds of preserved items are implements and tools that demonstrate sophisticated woodworking techniques, including joints, carved decorations, and even what appear to be mechanical devices with moving parts. Many items show tool marks that suggest the use of sharp metal implements, yet these artifacts date to a period when Native Americans supposedly only had access to stone and bone tools. Recent analysis using advanced imaging techniques has revealed additional mysteries hidden within the Windover artifacts. Several wooden items show evidence of repair and modification that occurred over periods of many decades, suggesting that these tools were valued possessions passed down through generations. The quality of the workmanship and the complexity of some items indicate a level of specialized craftsmanship that would have required full-time artisans supported by a complex social organization. The environmental evidence from Windover paints a picture of ancient Florida that differs dramatically from modern conditions. Pollen analysis shows that 7,000 years ago, Central Florida had a much cooler, drier climate with extensive pine forests and grasslands where wetlands exist today. But here's what makes the Windover site truly extraordinary in the context of Florida's ancient mysteries. It provides direct evidence that sophisticated cultures with advanced knowledge lived in Florida thousands of years earlier than previously believed. The textile technology, woodworking skills, and possible writing system found at Windover suggest that ancient Florida was home to civilizations with capabilities that rival those of early agricultural societies in other parts of the world. The burial practices at Windover also demonstrate advanced understanding of chemistry and preservation techniques. Creating the precise water chemistry conditions needed to preserve organic materials for thousands of years would challenge modern scientists. Yet somehow, people living 7,000 years ago not only understood these principles but implemented them successfully across multiple generations. Local geological surveys around the Windover site have identified similar boggy deposits that could potentially contain additional prehistoric burial sites. The implications of the Windover discoveries extend far beyond Florida archaeology. If the genetic evidence is accurate, it suggests that human populations were moving between continents thousands of years earlier than conventional history acknowledges. The advanced technologies found at the site indicate that sophisticated cultures existed in the Americas much earlier than previously believed, and that these cultures had knowledge and capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. But Windover is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. As we've seen throughout our journey into Florida's ancient mysteries, the state is filled with evidence of advanced ancient cultures whose true capabilities remain hidden from mainstream understanding. Our final mystery takes us to the southwestern coast, where massive shell mounds built by the Calusa people continue to reveal secrets about one of North America's most sophisticated, non-agricultural civilizations. Along the southwestern coast of Florida, where the Caloosahatchee River meets the Gulf of Mexico, rise some of the most impressive monuments ever created by Native American peoples. The Calusa shell mounds aren't just archaeological sites. They're engineering marvels that demonstrate sophisticated knowledge of hydraulics, mathematics, and environmental manipulation that allowed a single culture to dominate South Florida for over 1,000 years without ever developing agriculture. The largest of these mounds, located on Mound Key near Fort Myers Beach, rises over 30 feet above sea level and covers nearly 125 acres. But this isn't just a pile of discarded shells from ancient meals, as early archaeologists assumed. Recent investigations have revealed that the Calusa shell mounds are precisely engineered structures built according to sophisticated mathematical principles and designed to serve multiple functions that we're only beginning to understand. Construction of the major shell mounds began around 500 CE and continued for nearly 1,000 years, with each generation of builders adding carefully planned layers that served specific purposes. What makes the Calusa achievement so remarkable is that they accomplished all of this without agriculture. While most complex civilizations throughout world history developed in agricultural societies that could support large populations through food production, the Calusa created a sophisticated urban civilization based entirely on fishing, hunting, and gathering. The shell mounds served as the foundation for what was essentially a series of artificial islands that housed a population estimated at over 50,000 people at its peak. The engineering required to build stable structures from shells presents challenges that would test modern construction techniques. Shells naturally compact and decompose over time, creating unstable foundations that tend to sink or collapse. Yet the Calusa mounds have remained structurally sound for over 2,500 years, suggesting that their builders understood principles of soil mechanics and foundation engineering that weren't supposed to exist in pre-Columbian America. Recent core samples taken from the mounds have revealed the sophisticated construction techniques used by Calusa engineers. The mounds weren't simply built by piling shells together. They consist of alternating layers of different types of shell, sand, clay, and organic materials, arranged in specific patterns that create internal drainage systems and prevent structural failure. Some layers contain what appear to be wooden framework systems that distribute weight and provide structural reinforcement throughout the massive constructions. But the shell mounds served purposes far beyond simple construction platforms. The largest mounds functioned as sophisticated water management systems that controlled the flow of fresh water throughout the region during both wet and dry seasons. The Calusa engineered a series of canals, reservoirs, and drainage systems that connected the various mounds and allowed them to maintain consistent water levels regardless of seasonal variations or storm events. Archaeological evidence suggests that the water management system was so effective that the Calusa were able to create artificial wetlands and control the growth of specific types of aquatic plants and animals. This allowed them to essentially farm the coastal environment without traditional agriculture, maintaining populations of fish, shellfish, and other aquatic resources at levels that could support their large population year-round. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence that the Calusa possessed advanced knowledge of mathematics and engineering that allowed them to create structures with precision measured in inches across constructions spanning hundreds of acres. The geometric relationships between different mounds, the precise angles of various alignments, and the mathematical ratios incorporated into the construction all suggest access to knowledge that shouldn't have existed in pre-Columbian America. But perhaps the most mysterious aspect of the Calusa shell mounds is the evidence they provide for far-reaching trade networks and cultural connections that spanned continents. Excavations have yielded artifacts made from materials that don't occur anywhere in North America, including metals, stones, and organic materials that could only have come from Europe, Africa, Asia, or South America. The Calusa themselves left behind oral traditions that describe ancient visitors from across the sea who brought new knowledge and technologies. According to these traditions, recorded by Spanish explorers in the 16th century, the ancestors of the Calusa learned many of their construction and engineering techniques from foreign teachers who arrived by sea in large vessels. The visitors supposedly stayed for several generations, intermarried with local populations, and passed down advanced knowledge before eventually departing or dying out. DNA analysis of human remains found within the shell mounds has yielded results that support some aspects of these traditional accounts. While most individuals show genetic markers consistent with Native American populations, several burials contain genetic signatures that suggest ancestry from Europe, Africa, or other distant continents. The genetic diversity found in Calusa populations exceeds what would be expected from isolated indigenous groups and suggests significant population mixing with outside groups. The Calusa civilization came to an abrupt end in the 18th century, not because of Spanish conquest, but due to diseases introduced by European contact that decimated their population. By the time serious archaeological investigation of their sites began in the 19th century, most of the knowledge about their achievements had been lost. The shell mounds were dismissed as simple refuse heaps created by primitive fishing peoples, and it's only in recent decades that we've begun to understand the true sophistication of Calusa engineering and knowledge. But even as we uncover more evidence of Calusa achievements, fundamental questions remain unanswered. How did a non-agricultural society develop the mathematical and engineering knowledge needed to create such sophisticated structures? Where did they learn the astronomical principles that guided their constructions? And how did they establish the far-reaching trade networks and cultural connections that brought materials and knowledge from around the world to the coasts of ancient Florida? The Calusa shell mounds represent the culmination of thousands of years of cultural and technological development in ancient Florida. They demonstrate that sophisticated civilizations with advanced knowledge flourished in the Americas long before European contact, and that these civilizations had capabilities and connections that challenge our fundamental assumptions about the ancient world. As we reach the end of our journey through Florida's ancient mysteries, one thing becomes crystal clear. The story we've been told about America's past is incomplete and possibly completely wrong. From the impossible engineering of the Orange County rock mounds to the sophisticated astronomical knowledge embedded in the Miami Circle, from the artistic mastery of the Key Marco cat to the advanced preservation techniques found at Windover, Florida's archaeological record is filled with evidence of capabilities and knowledge that shouldn't have existed according to conventional history. What do you think about these mysteries? Are they evidence of lost civilizations with advanced knowledge, or are there conventional explanations that can account for all the anomalies we've discussed? Have we uncovered proof that human history is far more complex and ancient than we've been taught? Or are we seeing patterns where none exist? The evidence is there for anyone willing to examine it objectively. The precision of the constructions, the sophistication of the knowledge required to create them, and the consistent patterns that emerge across multiple sites all suggest that Florida's ancient past holds secrets that could revolutionize our understanding of human history and capabilities. But solving these mysteries will require more than just archaeological investigation. It will require a willingness to challenge fundamental assumptions about the past, to consider possibilities that mainstream science has rejected, and to remain open to evidence that might completely overturn our understanding of how civilization developed. The ancient builders of Florida left us a message written in stone, carved in wood, and embedded in the very landscape itself. That message tells us that human knowledge and capability extend far beyond what conventional history acknowledges, and that the story of civilization is far more ancient and complex than we've been taught. The question is, are we ready to listen? If Florida's ancient mysteries have captured your imagination, you'll want to check out our next deep dive into the impossible constructions found throughout South America. From the precision stone cutting of Pumapunku to the massive megaliths of Sacsayhuaman, ancient South American civilizations left behind evidence of engineering capabilities that continue to baffle modern scientists. These aren't just tourist attractions or archaeological curiosities. They're proof that ancient peoples possessed knowledge and techniques that we're only beginning to understand. Join us as we explore construction methods that challenged the laws of physics, transportation techniques that moved massive stones across impossible terrain, and architectural achievements that modern engineers struggle to explain. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our investigations into the world's most baffling ancient mysteries. And let us know in the comments which Florida mystery intrigued you the most. Are you convinced that these sites represent evidence of lost advanced civilizations? Or do you think there are conventional explanations that we haven't considered? Like this video if you enjoyed our journey through Florida's hidden history, and share it with anyone who might be interested in the real story behind America's ancient past. The more people who become aware of these mysteries, the more likely we are to find answers to the questions that conventional archaeology refuses to ask. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through Florida's ancient mysteries. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and never accept simple answers to complex questions. The truth is out there, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look beyond conventional assumptions and examine the evidence with fresh eyes. See you in the next investigation.